book after all these classes. And after these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and earth was lighted with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. So it starts out saying he saw another angel come down from heaven to the earth. And as far as the disciple is concerned, this means that within the consciousness of the disciple, that he contacts a higher consciousness and intelligence, and it comes down into the physical realm where the physical brain can actually register. And when the physical brain registers this revelation, then it says the earth was enlightened with its glory. In other words, the physical realm of which you are presently in receives enlightenment.
Is that from the monad?
Generally would be from the soul.
But the soul receives
the monad to the soul, and then from the soul to
right.
Us. Yeah. And Babylon is, and the whore are pretty much one. The whore, remembers, sat upon the beast, and the beast sits upon the many waters. The many waters is symbolic, it says, of the people of the earth, but the people of the earth are represented by the many waters because water is symbolic of emotions. And so the beast controls the peoples of the earth through the power of the lower emotions. And the whore, it says, sits upon the beast. And she has upon her forehead the name Babylon, is one of her names. So Babylon and the whore are basically the same thing, the misuse of female energy. And female energy is a very attractive energy. Unlike male energy, the male energy has to go out and grab stuff and get it if it wants to attain it.
Yeah, we're not attractive.
The female energy just has to sit there and draw things to her. And one of the most powerful female energies is money. You throw out $100 bill anywhere, leave it somewhere, it won't be very long before it just has to sit there and somebody's going to grab it. It doesn't have to go out and find somebody to give it to like the male energy does. So money is a very powerful female energy. Now, it talks about Babylon the Great is fallen. Okay, and what is fallen is this female energy of Babylon is the wrong use of money. But what's interesting about money is that a lot of people think that it is in the Bible where it says money is the root of all evil, but that is not what the Bible says.
The love of money.
Yeah.
Misuse of money.
What is the root of all evil is the love of money, not money itself. And you can say this with the female energy, that the female energy and the male energy, both energies are neither good nor bad. It depends on the use they're put to. So this magnetic power of the female energy is represented by two females in the book of Revelation. Number one, the female in chapter 12 that gives the birth to the Christ. In other words, the higher correspondence of the female energy puts us in contact with the soul, with the Christ within and guides us in the right direction instinctively. But the negative part of the female energy is where we're attracted to that which glitters on the outside. That's what attracts us to. And this is where the love of money, which is the root of all evil, comes from, is when we make the wrong use of female energy by being attracted to that which is the corruption of the female energy, most highly represented by money and power. Okay, very powerful draw for the female energy. Now, when it talks about we're talking about the fall of Babylon here. It says Babylon the Great is fallen, So we're reaching a point to where people are realizing that this misuse of female energy is incorrect. And what's interesting, we talked about last week, how there was a division among the beast. Yeah, the female riding the beast through the 7 kingdoms of the world, clear back from ancient Egypt on forward to today. And in this 7th kingdom that we're in, there'll be 10 horns or 10 parts of the world that it says will hate the whore. And but they're all part of the same thing. The negative use of the female energy and the 10 kings that are with the beast, they're all subject to this, to the powers of the beast. In other words, authorities that take the place of God, the outer authority. And this outer authority governs them all. Yet it tells us that these 10 different divisions of the world will gravitate to a system that will hate the whore. Okay, the whore represents the misuse of money, and this represents capitalism at its misuse, the misuse of capitalism and making money for making money's sake, so that you can have the luxuries of the world, big yacht, and nice homes, and extra things.
Is the main thing.
Lamborghinis and so on. So we all seek. We seek for that which glitters. It says the whore has a golden cup in her hand, symbolizing the treasures of the world, that the love of money takes you toward. But then these 10 different kingdoms, it says, will hate the whore. And so what has evolved in among the kingdoms of the world is this hatred toward the rich. You have all kinds of politicians surfacing saying, oh, man, we need to tax the rich. Rich are getting away with everything. And they find that if they attack the rich, then a lot of the common people think, yeah, let's go after those rich. You know, they don't deserve what they got. And so it says these 10 crowns will hate the whore and seek to destroy her. And so this is a situation the world is in right now, is we have this division, and those that are many of those that are in power throughout the nations of the earth get there by saying, hey, man, we're going to go after those rich guys. You know, they don't they don't deserve it. So they and the rich guys are representations of the whore and Babylon. Okay, so we have this division happen, and it's happened several times, like in the French Revolution. That was the big inspiration of the French Revolution. Let's go after those rich guys and the ones in power. Let's topple them over, and they toppled, and the Babylon had falling at that time in among the French. Now, the same thing in the Bolshevik Revolution that established communism. They went after the rich and powerful. They preached, oh, we're going to have to go after the rich and get their land, and we're going to divide up their land and give everybody, and everything's going to be great because everybody's going to be equal. Well, it didn't really turn out that way, but the Bolshevik Revolution did cause the Babylon of that particular place on earth to fall, and was replaced by another system just as bad or worse. And that's the trouble. They're all part of the beast. So Babylon falls, but the beast still survives, and that's where the problem is. The problem isn't with money or isn't with power. It's the fact that people substitute the inner God for the outer God. And so, as long as that happens, the beast continues to survive. Now,
Can I make an observation? I went
sure.
to France. We were some time ago with a friend, and we went to Versailles. Versailles is it's a castle estate that was built by one of the Louis, and it's about 15 miles outside of Paris, just far enough away that the high class, the sophisticated aristocrats of Paris could have their own private little um, estate. And it took 18% of France's gross national product to run Versailles.
Wow.
And so they were bankrupting France by having the elitists like Marie Antoinette. You know, the people were starving, and Marie Antoinette, they came to Versailles and they said, "Help us, help us. We have no bread." And Marie said, "Well, that's an inconvenience. Just let them eat cake." And that so incensed the people that in that moment they still have the axe marks on the door into the castle, the state, where they dragged her out and put her to the guillotine. But that was a tremendous misuse of money that you mentioned, and the result was the French Revolution.
Yeah. And the French Revolution was really symbolic of Babylon fallen. Now, what's interesting, it says Babylon is fallen, is fallen. Now, that can be translated two different ways. Either in the scholars say that can be translated as the past or the present. So it can also be translated Babylon is falling, it is falling, or it can be translated Babylon the Great is fallen, is fallen. Either way, it depends on the context, according to scholars. So if John wrote it in the present tense, so you could say Babylon was falling in his day also, and Babylon was represented in his day by ancient Rome. Now, some people think that Babylon is representative of United States and New York City, because Babylon, ancient Babylon, rested upon waters, just like New York City rests upon waters, and it's the financial capital of the world, pretty much. So if New York is destroyed, then it would be like the fall of Babylon. So a lot of people that read the book of Revelation expect New York City to be destroyed, or possibly the United States will be completely destroyed, and that will be the fulfillment of the fall of Babylon. That's what a lot of fundamentalist Bible believers think about this. And that's always a possibility, and there is a symbolism there, but it goes much greater than that, in that it applies to a lot of things, and then even applied to ancient Rome. And ancient Rome eventually did fall, and because of the misuse of money, and they made the same mistakes that we did. They watered down the value of their money. And what they did, they started making their coins with less gold and silver in, and then pretty soon they substituted other metals for the gold and silver, and they watered down the value of their money, just like, but we do that in different ways. They didn't have the luxury of printing it up on digital currency the way we do today. But right now, it's when they create an extra $1 trillion, they can just make a bookkeeping entry, and there it is. But back then, they actually had to mint the the money out of gold and silver, and they kept watering down the value, and they thought that the people would go along with that. Yeah, we'll make these gold coins with other cheap metals, and they won't know the difference. Well, they did know the difference, and the value of it just went down. The people were a lot smarter than the authorities give them credit for. So they Babylon was uh, definitely fell through Rome, and not dramatically in one day, though the way that things have happened before. Like I said, in the French Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution, the fall was really quick of the capitalistic system, and it was replaced. In the Bolshevik Revolution, it was replaced by the communism, and in the French Revolution, it was replaced by people power, so to speak, that turned back into a regular system led by Napoleon Bonaparte. But as
Yeah, they had happened on the spot. They pulled out Marie Antoinette and cut off her head, and that was the end of Louis the 16th, one of the last Louis. I mean, it was very quick.
yeah, yeah,
Well, on the other hand, when you receive enlightenment from your soul, it dispels Babylon, which represents, like you said earlier, confusion, and all of a sudden you have a moment of clarity inside, and you might see something like when I saw reincarnation, it was aha, and all the confusion of the plan of salvation was gone, was eliminated. I'm talking, was eliminated in that exact second, when and Babylon was fallen within.
right. So the fall of Babylon has two interpretations. One on the individual disciple, he uh, puts a lot of attention on making money and surviving financially, and eventually has to put the spiritual above the material. And when he does this, the inner Babylon falls, and the angel comes, a higher consciousness comes and enlightens him and brings his consciousness up. So you have that symbolism, and Babylon the Great and the disciples of which we have some gathered here, and within your consciousness, Babylon the Great is falling. It is falling and being replaced by something higher. And then we have the outer, where Babylon the Great is falling. And here in, say, in the America as well as other countries of the world, there is greater and greater dissatisfaction with the those who are rich and powerful misusing that and having a disproportionate um, amount of power. Like people are really disgruntled over the fact that, say, in a large company, the executive may be making 500 million, or the president or chief executive may be making 500 million a year, and the average guy may be just a very small portion of that. And so people are very dissatisfied with that. Why it happens is kind of a mystery that they pay some of these guys so much money. You'd think you'd be able to get pretty good leadership with a lot less than they're paying these guys.
Well, especially when they do a retirement package. and they leave the company,
Oh
and it's
yeah, they
not
give
just
them tons
it's
of money.
millions. Yeah, and not just the business, but politicians. The same. They come in with no money and they leave with owning an island and a jet and millions in their bank account. Where did all that come from? Not from
Yeah,
their salary.
yeah. And people are thinking, well, during COVID, for instance, the average person, the average small business, a lot of small businesses went out of business, but the big businesses like Amazon and different ones, they flourished. They made a lot of money. And the rich got, everybody got poorer during COVID and the lockdowns, except for the rich got much richer. And people realize that, and they're getting, they say, this isn't right. This, something's wrong with the system. And this questioning fulfills the statement Babylon the Great is falling, it is falling. In other words, people are saying there's something wrong here and we need to do something about it. But the problem in throughout history is the cure is often worse than the disease. Like in the Bolshevik Revolution, the establishment that was into power and money was replaced by a system that wasn't supposed to be like that. But then it turned out that if you're a member of the Communist Party, you had all kinds of money and power and goods. But if you weren't a member, then you had to wait in line for bread. And so it the cure was not a cure at all. And this is the problem. The beast still survives even after Babylon falls. Okay.
Well, that's what's happening with pharmaceuticals today. You got drugs. They're supposed to be a cure for ailments that didn't even exist 50 years ago.
Yeah, we have new diseases or diseases that were very rare, like diabetes. 50 years ago, hardly anybody had diabetes, but now 10 times more people have it than they used to have. Yet they've got all kinds of advances on how to cure it and prevent it, but they're not working. And so,
Neuropathy and heart problems, all kinds of stuff.
A
Alzheimer's.
lot of that depends on the diet. People are eating junk food and the desire
yeah,
for sweets and the fat.
yeah. What's interesting is with cigarettes, for instance, they say a cigarette contains about that. I don't know if it's still that way, but especially in the past, it contained over 100 ingredients. And addiction wasn't the nicotine so much, was all the other ingredients they put in it that they say recent studies show that nicotine is nearly as addictive as the whole package of the cigarette itself. And then when the cigarettes become unpopular, the big money that was behind cigarettes went into our food supply, and they started making a lot of our food with these addictive ingredients that they mastered from making cigarettes addictive. So, you eat these different types of chips and uh, uh, prepackaged stuff and cereals. A lot of it is addictive, and some of our drinks are addictive, like Diet Coke and the diet drinks have a lot of chemicals in that are addictive. I could never understand why anyone was attracted to any of those diet drinks. When I very first tasted them, when they first come out, I thought, boy, this tastes like a bunch of chemicals. I'm not going to, and I have stayed away from them ever since. But I'm amazed how many people get addicted to them. Trump and Musk are addicted. Musk is trying to break his habit. He said he was drinking like 6 of them a day, and he says he's last I heard he was sworn off. So hopefully he stays off. But yeah, my friend Wayne, um, in the book, He was addicted to Diet Cokes when Artie and I tried to get him off of them, and he agreed with us that it would be best, but he just couldn't quit, and he died early. And I think that was part of the reason that he drank so many of those things.
He had a real bad diet anyway. He
Yeah,
gained
yeah, he did.
50 pounds. My dad had sugar diabetes. He drank a 6 pack of Pepsi a day. He finally got off of it, but he's still
He drank regular Pepsi though, didn't he?
regular Pepsi.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not nearly as bad as the diet.
Oh, I don't know. A can of Pepsi has like 12 teaspoons of sugar in it.
Yeah, it's not good for you, but the diet's even worse, I think. Okay, it says Babylon has become the habitation of devils and the hold of every foul spirit and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Okay, let's first of all go into every foul spirit. First of all, the interesting thing about Babylon and money is that all of our money has a human face on of some kind. Lincoln, Washington, Benjamin Franklin, the Queen. And so it's symbolic of the power of money over people itself. And so Babylon begins to fall, or is falling, when we realize the human society, the situation we're in right now, is the people of the world are at a crossroads where they're beginning to realize that there's a problem with the wrong use of money. Now, in the past ages, everybody just wanted to get money for themselves so they could have the power. But we're reaching a point of enlightenment of humanity in this time of the seventh head of the beast, where these 10 kingdoms are surfacing, where the dialogue is in circulation. There's something wrong about this wrong use of money, and we need some type of correction. Okay, and this is in circulation, and this is where we're in that situation now, where Babylon the Great is falling. It is falling. In other words, this wrong use of money, and the wrong use of money is being corrected, or is in the process where we're seeking things to correct it. We're having all kinds of thought and dialogue around the right use of money. We're also having dialogue around, say, the budget, where we're $30 trillion in debt. We realize that this tremendous debt we've taken on is a wrong use of money, and we need to do something to correct this, because we're spending $1 trillion. The United States alone spends $1 trillion a year just paying the interest on the debt. And think of what we could do with $1 trillion a year. We could eliminate the problem with every poor person in America with $1 trillion a year.
Why don't we just eliminate the debt? Just cut it off. It's like a cancer.
Just tell the bankers we aren't going to pay.
Yeah, we're not going to pay. Can't not going to. Done.
Well, if we go bankrupt, that's what we'll have to do. We'll just have to say, well, sorry. We can't pay. I mean, what happens when it gets to 2 trillion? We got to pay, and then 3 trillion. Then pretty much the interest will be more than the taxes that we take in. So what happens then? I mean, people are not looking ahead, but when we just had to pay 100 billion, we were worried about it then. But now it's $1 trillion. Which is $1,000 billion that is down the drain every year, just because we keep borrowing on this credit card. Now,
where does this money go, Joe? Who gets all this money that we're paying out?
Well, that's the funny part about it, is in the Constitution, Congress has the power to mint money. And when Congress minted the money, we just printed it up and we didn't have to pay anybody because we created the money. So in 1913, the bankers come up with the idea of the Federal Reserve. They're saying Congress isn't responsible, so we can be more responsible. We'll print up the money, but we'll loan it to you and charge you interest.
What a
So,
corrupt system.
and they went, and Congress actually passed that. I mean, they put a lot of pressure on them and bought off a lot of Congress people. And so since 1913, the Federal Reserve prints up all the money that we want and they charge us interest. And we also borrow money from different nations. We've got about a couple trillion borrowed from the Chinese, and we borrow from other countries, invest in America. But if we don't have anybody willing to lend us money, then the bankers just print it up and charge us interest.
Why don't we just declare that unconstitutional and then
Well, Kennedy was going to do that, and then he died shortly after he come up with that idea.
well, so did Lincoln.
Yeah, and Lincoln, the same thing. Now, Lincoln, during the Civil War, when the Civil War started, he says, "Well, we've got to come up with a bunch of money. We don't have enough to really fight this war." So he gathered the bankers around. The bankers wanted to charge him about over 10% interest. He says, "Well, we can't pay that. We've got to come up with something else." So Lincoln went and read the Constitution and says, "Hey, I got power to print the money, or we do. We'll just print our own money." So he printed their own money, which was greenbacks, and that infuriated the bankers. And after he was killed, the greenbacks disappeared. No, nobody. They were taken out of circulation, and nobody printed any more greenbacks after Lincoln was killed.
That'd be worth a lot of money today if you had a greenback or two.
Yeah, and the theory is that both Lincoln and Kennedy were killed because they wanted to print their own money and not pay the bankers any interest. And that's one of the conspiracy theories among the death of both of them.
Well, how much money does a banker need?
Yeah, and where does that money go?
Yeah, where does it go?
Nobody knows. The Federal Reserve has never been audited. A number of people have called for audit, but then it never goes anywhere. So nobody knows where that $1 trillion goes every year. It goes somewhere.
The mystery of Babylon.
Yeah. So anyway, people are becoming aware of the problems of the misuse of money, and Babylon the Great is falling. It's falling. And it's become the habitation of devils. Devil comes from the word diamond, which didn't represent a devil the way that we think of a devil today with horns and everything, but it represents a false god. A diamond in ancient Rome would be somebody that was channeled by a psychic of some kind, and seen, or an oracle, and seen as an authority. And so you get information from this supernatural being and whether or not you're going to win a battle and this type of thing. And these were diamonds, which were substitutes, supposedly, according to the book of Revelation, substitutes for the true God. In other words, this is part of the beast. The beast is an outer substitute for God. And instead of God being within, God is without. So Babylon the Great has become the habitation of those who get their authority from the outside rather than relying on the inner authority. Okay, and it says the hold of every foul spirit. So hold here comes from a Greek word that literally means a prison. So in other words, these people that are holding on to this uh, money and power are in a prison of their own making. They're in a prison that they can't escape from. They have the love of money and the power, and that governs them rather than being governed by their inner spirit. And then the hold of every hateful bird. Now, the most hateful bird is the vultures, and the vultures wait for some other entity to die, and then they eat their flesh. And this a big thing that's happening with a lot of corrupt capitalists today is they'll have a takeover of another company, and then they'll tear it apart and sell off bits and pieces and make money off of the sales of the various parts of the company. And then they're like vultures and hateful birds that will tear into other companies and destroy them and profit from their destruction. And so we see a lot of that going on today.
You saw that in Meet Joe Black. That's what they did. Anthony Hopkins, they would get companies and break them down and sell them till they decided not to. They saw the evil of that particular enterprise and stopped.
Yeah, and the right use of money is the difficult part. And this is where the disciple comes to a crossroads in his life, that a lot of disciples find they have to almost feel like they're selling their souls to the devil because they maybe have a job that's very, very materialistic, or maybe they have to participate in some deception, or maybe it's not really a service to humanity, and they desire to go the spiritual path. Has anyone here had that problem in their life where you feel that the need to make money has been a distraction to take you away from the spiritual path? How about you, Maria? Have you felt that way before?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
But I never went down that road, you know. There was always spirituality for me.
Yeah.
So, whereas I could have been living like a queen today.
Well, there's always a way to use your vocation as a spiritual avenue to influence the people that you're working with. Like I have 400 or 500 customers, and when I'm out doing pest control, I hand them a copy of my book and say, "Hey, take a look at this while I'm doing this work, and tell me what you think of it." So you can use your vocation as an avocation to do good.
Yeah.
The conflict.
Well, I see Cindy is with us. Let's pick on her. Have you, what have you done to make money in your life? And have you felt like it's been a distraction, or have you been able to balance making money with your spiritual path?
I have always had a passion that's related to helping humanity, and I've pretty much been able to balance that, whether it's serving like groups that are trying to improve healthcare, or working as a physical, like a PT assistant. Um, I kind of just haven't been willing to bend on that, but I've been lucky to have that flexibility because my husband's also done jobs, and some of his jobs have been less focused around helping humanity. So without that, I probably wouldn't have been able to be so particular about what I work with. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good, because a lot of people, and several times in my life, I've seen making money as a tremendous distraction from the
Yeah.
spiritual path. I just wish that I didn't have to deal with it so much. And
Yeah.
so
I think a lot of them of maybe like the main breadwinners in the family who just kind of have to take what comes along and have to figure things out, they can experience that a lot.
yeah, and people go to extremes. Some people get do pretty good making money, then they get interested in spiritual path and they let their money making side go to smithereens, and then they don't have any money at all, and then they can't concentrate on anything without being able to pay their bills. So that doesn't work for them. But yeah, that's great that you've been able to balance things off. Now, another person that's balanced things off pretty good, I would say, is Emmanuel. Is he's doing something that he loves and makes money with, and he's also helping people. So I think you're pretty fortunate. What do you think, Emmanuel?
I'm not as fortunate as Curtis, but I'm definitely.
Yeah, you're not
Uh,
pruning trees or anything.
yeah,
What do you do for work?
I do energy medicine, so I've been doing that for 10 years now, and I have a wellness center with my wife, and she does more biofeedback frequency devices and stuff. So she's on the frequency side, I'm more on the energy medicine side. I used to have a protocol where literally, if you look at my files, it's really interesting. I used to whenever I would remove trauma from someone's heart, it would be like I wanted them to uh, be equal in every area of their life, like physical, meditation, and just kind of like be a balanced person. Because Chinese medicine's all about being balanced, not happy. It's just being balanced. And so I would tell people, I'm like, hey, have you what have you done in spirituality? And I used to be very bold, and I would give my conversion story on my second session with them, which got me in trouble with one very, very strong Christian who just rebuked me to who knows where. But I'm just saying, like, it's really interesting how, like, when I first started, I was like, I'm gonna find a way to give out my my conversion story for free to all my clients and do as much missionary work as I could. But I kind of held back with that. But I just recently, some lady told me, she's like, I'm doing all these sessions, everything, nothing is working in my life. And it reminded me back, I don't know if you've experienced this, JJ, but like I had a lull in my life back around age 25 where like nothing was working. And I remember praying about it for a long time about like, am I just supposed to become like Saint Francis of Assisi and knock people's doors and just, you know, uh, get alms the rest of my life? But what's interesting is that like during my prayer, I heard a voice very clearly tell me that if you became successful, you would forget about me. And I just remember like God was really speaking to me and saying that's so true. It's like we whenever we're good, we forget about him. And so then I kind of went the opposite way and became like I went to the library for 3 months and was reading a lot and learning about spirituality. That was around the time where I converted to the LDS church. But I'm just saying, like I feel like whenever I see someone who's kind of like nothing is moving, I feel like God's saying that like you're not looking at me enough, and there's something that you need to know about yourself. That's just my opinion.
Okay. Now, before you did this work you're in now, what did you do for a living?
I used to have a very prestigious job at Domino's Pizza.
Domino's Pizza?
Yeah, I used to be a driver for Domino's Pizza, and yeah, a funny thing about that was my car broke down, and then I had to borrow my mother's Lexus, and it was the funniest thing. You should have seen the people's look on their faces when I had a Domino's Pizza sign on top of a Lexus, and they're like, maybe I should work for Domino's Pizza.
That's funny. Now, when you worked for Domino's Pizza, were you interested in the spiritual path at that time, or did that come later?
No, the only spiritual thing that kind of woke me up in my tracks were two things. One was being an being a I don't remember what they're called. It's like it's someone who works in the Catholic Church, and like I was serving the priest, and that was a very like I used to hold this cross. It has a lot of symbolism to me now, where it was they got rid of it. It's so funny how like things that don't work later on they'll be like, why did we order kids to do that? That was so almost abusive. But like I would carry this very amazing statue. It was like a bronze statue where Jesus was walking forward out of the cross, and it was the hardest thing to hold. And I would just be like not shivering, but trembling, trying to grab it. But I remember it like it held symbolism for me, kind of like trying to hold on to Jesus was like a shaky, kind of hard thing to do. And so that was kind of a very spiritual thing for me. And then also when I read the book Siddhartha when I was 17 by Herman Hesse, that for me was like one of the only books that really just kind of shocked me to my core. And I said, okay, so who you follow, you become. And yeah, so that, but it's not really energy medicine. My mom used to do it on me temporarily. She would do acupuncture stuff on me, and I'd be like, "You're so weird, mom. Why are you putting needles on me when I'm have no clothes on?" Um, but now, but yeah, it's kind of like it came in drips and drops, like here and there. But my mom definitely was a big influence because she was very holistic oncologist, which is a very rare breed nowadays.
So back in the early days, delivering pizza, you probably just saw it as a means to an end, not so much a distraction from the spiritual work. You're just probably thinking of ways to get out of that and make more money, I imagine, huh?
Yeah, and to be honest, this is such a funny topic because again, I don't know if anyone feels this way, but like I think one of the worst feelings in my life was just feeling lost. Like I just remember, like I kept telling myself like I'm meant for something more. I had to keep telling myself that. In fact, I'll tell you this. It's really interesting. One of my stake president one time said to me, you have a special gift. There's like divers gifts." And I said, "Okay, I'm open ears. What is it?" He says, "I've told you things that I've never told anyone before, and I feel like you have a non-judgmental spirit about you." And I remember telling him very clearly, I was like, "Well, I'm a greeter for Verizon, so I have no idea how that's going to be useful to me at all." But I think like years later, 10 years later, that would be very useful to me as a practitioner.
Okay. Now, Ed here, he's had a kind of a regular job. You're a surveyor, right, Ed?
Well, I had my own business for quite a number of years. I mean, I was a surveyor for over 50 years.
Now, did you feel that now, with the good part of your job, it was honest work and you're actually contributing to society, so you weren't really taking advantage of anybody. But on the other hand, it's kind of a regular way to make money. It's not really, you don't really associate surveying with spirituality. What was having to have a business, did you feel that was a distraction, or were you able to balance spirit and money together? How do you feel you've handled everything?
Well, first of all, being a surveyor was sort of part of my karmic lineage from the other lives, but I didn't start the business for the idea that I was going to make money. I started the idea that it was a valuable service. And one of the things I found that I could do is I could be a mediator between people where there was problems on construction jobs. And well, one incident, when I had a small business working out of my house, I was on a Saturday down in Laguna Beach, California, and there's the builder I was working with, and he had building a house up on a hill, but he didn't have a physical access, so he and his neighbor didn't get along. So I got the two of them together, and it happened to be my birthday. And before I was done, I had them both singing "Happy Birthday" to me, and we worked out the problem.
Okay. Yeah. Did you ever wish that you had more time to like read spiritual books or did you have enough free time to do what you wanted to do on the spiritual side?
Well, nights and I went to groups where we discussed and read the Bailey books and Cedar Cran's books. I always found time to do what I thought was important, and there's no value in regretting that I didn't have enough time because that's only gets in the way.
Yeah. Sound like you had a good balance. Sound like a number of people here have kind of balanced things off pretty good. I don't see anyone here just thirsting for more money and power and in the direction away from the spirit. So I think we have a pretty good balanced group overall.
I
Well,
want more money and power.
Yeah.
I never went hungry. You know, when I was very small, when my folks moved us to 13 acres of bare land and lived in a tent through the winter, and and the next year my dad built a shack on the side, and we had orange crates for furniture. So I realized that I could survive. I could get by no matter what the circumstances were.
Yeah. I remember when I was a kid one time, uh, we had feast or famine, and my dad either had a lot of money or no money. And one time when we had no money for dinner, we had bread and milk. And, and I thought it was pretty good. I'd had no complaints at all. I thought this tastes pretty tasty. I didn't realize, you know, I was only about 6 years old. I didn't realize that my parents were probably having a really rough time at that time, because I thought the bread and milk tasted pretty good at the time.
Speaking of bread, I still remember you making me these toast with a half a cube of butter and cinnamon and
Sugar.
syrup. I mean, I still remember how tasty that was. You remember making
Oh,
that?
that syrup. Yeah, I had several formulas that I had there. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd have done. It wasn't very healthy, but it tasted good.
Oh, yeah.
Time.
Dang good.
Yeah, I grew up on way too much sugar. That's why I had about my biggest medical expense of my life is outside of my accident with my hand was my uh, dental work I've had to have done because of eating so much sugar when I was a kid. Okay, my friends, we're about out of time. We'll just have a short benediction here, but next week is Super Bowl. So